everybody, and welcome to the next edition of the Cose WebEd webinar series. Today's topic is, what does your website say about you? And joining us today is Jamie Geierman from Akia Communications, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her in just 1 minute. But before we get started, for those of you who are maybe new to the Cose webinar series, let me tell you a little bit about how this is going to operate. We want this to be as conversational and as engaging as possible. So with that in mind, we're not necessarily going to hold questions until the end. We're going to be addressing those as they come up. So as Jamie goes through her presentation, think a little bit about your own website and how what she's saying reflects on what you're trying to communicate with your customers, and go ahead and type your questions into your control bar that you see on your screen. Those questions are only going to be visible to me, and we'll take a couple of opportunities through the presentation to survey for questions and get those questions addressed. So hope you take advantage of this opportunity. It's a great opportunity to get your questions answered by a great expert. And speaking of Jamie, let me tell you a little bit more about her. Jamie Geierman is an Associate Director of Optimization at Akia Communications, an integrated marketing and PR agency in Hudson, Ohio. With nearly 20 years of experience working for agencies in the Cleveland, Washington, D.C., and New York City markets, Jamie has spent the past decade bringing digital strategy and solutions to B2B and B2C brands, including Akron Children's Hospital, Swagelok, Timken, Suprema, Nestle, MTD, Goodyear, Hallmark, Bendix, Alcoa, GE, the Veterans Health Administration, the Defense Centers of Excellence for Psychological Health and Traumatic Brain Injury for the Department of Defense, Eucerin, Aquaphor, Nivea, Barilla, and Lavazza. At Akia, she oversees the digital team leading digital strategy, social media, audience segmentation, influencer programs, and digital content mapping solutions for clients. Jamie's passionate about transforming business challenges into solutions and opportunities, and her early involvement with digital put her at the forefront of the social movement, producing first-in-kind campaigns for national brands. She's an energetic leader with a natural ability to rally teams around her, pushing them and her clients to new heights. Jamie's a graduate of the University of Dayton and resides in Concord, Ohio. So with all that said now, I'm going to get out of the way and turn things over to Jamie for our presentation today. Jamie, go ahead.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you everyone for joining today. I'm really excited about this presentation and look forward to addressing and answering any questions you might have. As we get started, just want to tell you a little bit more about Akia for those of you who aren't familiar. So Akia is an integrated communications agency. We are full service, offering a wide array of services to our clients, including strategic communications, branding, public relations, digital, which is the group that I oversee here, corporate communications, creative, and content marketing. Today, as Sean mentioned, I'm going to talk about the importance of creating a positive user experience through your website, and ultimately what your website says about you. So I'm going to start off by just talking about first impressions. First impressions are everything. I'm sure you're all aware of this saying, and the fact that first impressions have a tendency to stick and are very difficult to change once they're formed. For example, if you walk into a store to get light bulbs, you head straight to the lighting aisle to purchase them, except they're not there. You walk up and down the surrounding aisles, you look around for help, you don't find what you need, you're probably going to get frustrated and you're going to leave. Let's say you're interviewing a candidate for the position of an administrative assistant, and one shows up late, they're dressed in dirty, torn gardening clothes. You conduct the interview as best you can, but you have a hard time looking past how they're presenting themselves, and you wonder if you can consider them fairly for the position. You sign up for a yoga class. You arrive at the first session only to find out it's a bodybuilding fitness program. This isn't what you signed up for. You get frustrated, you leave, and you tell your friends about your experience. So ask yourself, do you go back to that store the next time you need light bulbs? Do you look past the appearance of that candidate that's vying for the corporate office job? Do you continue paying dues to that yoga instructor? Chances are you don't. You turn somewhere else to get what you need because we have options, and there's always a chance we'll find a better experience elsewhere. The same thing can be said about your website. There's over 1.8 billion websites currently available online. And with all of those options, we have choices as to where we can go to get information about products and services and information that we're seeking. And because of this, it's so critical to understand that your website strategy needs to be part of your overall business plan. Your site must convey and provide the same experience, service, and message as your physical business, because the first impression your site creates will result in those deep-rooted thoughts and feelings that are going to be very difficult to change. So just like those offline examples, we as consumers have unlimited options to get what we need and have the experiences we desire. So what can you do to create the right first and last impression on your website so you don't lose leads and customers? We're going to take a closer look and consider, what does your website say about you? So the first area we want to focus on today is navigation. This is the most important part of any website, is that it's easy to use. Looking at these stats here, they're pretty alarming, but also very telling, and I'm sure we've all experienced this at some point. 40% of people are going to abandon your web page if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. And 48% of users who arrive on a site that isn't mobile friendly take it as a sign that your business just doesn't care. This is so critical that we pay attention to, these two areas. If your site is slow, if it's hard to navigate, and it's not mobile responsive, you're going to lose people before your site even has a chance to load. And that's not something that we want. Once you turn people off to your website and you create that negative experience, chances are they're not going to come back. And just by the stats I shared, there's plenty of other places for them to go and seek out that content or that solution or that product information that they're trying to search for. So if you've got poor navigation, these are some things that are going to carry over to those audiences, to those users, and this is how they're going to feel when they experience that. If your site is loading very slowly, if it doesn't work on mobile, people are going to look at that as you not valuing their time. Think about how frustrating it is when you're trying to do research or you're looking up a business or information about a company and you're using your mobile device and you come across a poor experience and you're not able to navigate the page because it's not optimized for mobile. Think about how frustrated you get. You might spend a couple more seconds on the site trying to get to what you need, but chances are you're going to leave and go elsewhere. Poor navigation can also say that you don't understand your audience's pain points. Again, going back to that, not valuing your visitors' time, you want to make things as seamless and easy as possible for your audiences to find. And if you're not doing that, they're going to take it as you not understanding what they need, and they're not going to trust you as a solution provider for whatever it is that they're seeking. It also can come across that you're cheap or you're unwilling to pay for faster website hosting. This may, in fact, have nothing to do with your actual hosting platform, but if you've got a lot of different widgets or other things that make up your site that are causing it to load slowly or a delay in load time, like videos or other forms of rich content, that could slow it down and have nothing to do with where the website is hosted. But again, if it's not loading fast, people are going to view that as, you're unwilling to pay for that faster load time or that your company is cheap. And then last on this list is people are going to feel that you don't get the importance of mobile and that you're out of touch with customers. It's become second nature now for users to expect to have the same experience that they would on desktop as they will on mobile. So as we move from device to device, desktop to mobile, we want to make sure that we're providing that seamless experience. And if we're not, it's going to make your company feel outdated and out of touch with those customers. And when all this is said and done, what your users are really walking away with is a pretty negative message that you just don't care about your customers. And obviously that is not the impression that we want to make. So in turn, if you do have a great navigation and your site does load quickly, you do have a nice experience that you're creating both on desktop and mobile, this is what your website should say about you. It should say that you respect your customers' time and that you're going to get them what they need quickly. It should say that you know how to address their pain points and you've mapped out a simple way to address them. You've made it very easy for them to find what they need when they get to your site and navigate around to get more information. It should say that you're willing to invest in your customers because you care about their needs. Again, this goes back to making it super seamless and easy for that site to load, for pages to load quickly, for the content to load quickly. It shows that you're willing to make that investment because you value your customers' time. And then you take the time to understand your customer and you go to great lengths to meet their needs. So if you've thought through what your customers or your users might need when they get to your website, if you've mapped out the content and the solutions in a way that is going to be relevant to their needs, easy for them to find, it's going to really show that you understand your customers and therefore are able to provide whether it's a product or solution that is best suited for their needs. And ultimately, when you're creating that positive navigation and experience, you're showing that you really care about your customers. So what can you do? What can you do to improve navigation or even test and take a look at how your site is performing today? You can get a website speed analysis. This is something that's pretty simple. It's free. One of them is called GT Metrics. And you can go to that site, you plug in the URL for your website, and it'll crawl your site, and it'll tell you how much that load time is for the site and then for each of the pages within your website. Ideally, you want to be below 3 seconds, but again, if you've got more rich content on your site and a lot of customized widgets and items built in, it will take a little bit longer to load. So in that case, you have to evaluate, is that longer load time worth it? Does that content pay off? Requiring someone to wait a little bit longer for it to load. If it's an intro video or something else, you'll need to evaluate that and see where you stand against that recommended 3-second mark. You'll want to revisit your sitemap to ensure that it addresses your customers' needs, not just yours. We like to think about not just what we want people to do on our website, but also what they need to do and what they actually are doing. So take a look at your analytics to see how people are navigating through your site and optimize your site to fit their needs and to fit their journey. Keep your navigation simple so your customers have no trouble finding the information they need. Again, this comes into play and works when you really know who your customers are and how to identify with their pain points and how to serve them content, product solutions and services that are going to fit their needs. And then leverage your Google Analytics to see what devices users are using to access your site. In some cases, many of your users will still be on desktop. We notice this a lot for B2B companies when users are tending to engage with company sites during the day when they're at a desk, therefore they're on a desktop, versus more B2C brands are going to need to really make sure their sites are optimized for mobile. No matter what, we always recommend optimizing them for both, but it is always good just to get a pulse on where your users are at, what devices they are using, and making sure that you're optimizing the experience for all instances. And then take a look too within your Google Analytics at the different pages that your users are visiting. Look at what the bounce rates are, how much time they're spending on those pages, where they're going from one page to the next, to really get a good understanding of what their journey is looking like on your site and making sure that you're optimizing the experience for each of those different users coming to your website. Any questions so far as before we move into the next?
We do, Jamie. First of all, we have one question asking, is it bad practice then, as far as load time goes, to have video on your home page? Will that lengthen load times too much? And if so, what are some things that people can do to to improve those load times. You talked about kind of taking a look at your specialty widgets and videos, but is there kind of a best practice as to how to kind of manage that balance?
Sure. So we do see a lot of companies and brands having a video on their homepage. Akia has that actually at the very top of our homepage, and that was something that we kind of weighed the pros and cons against to see if it was going to hurt our load time or if it was going to be more of a benefit to the experience that we wanted to create within our site. So with the video and the way that ours is set up, it is different when you open our site using a mobile device versus desktop. So the video obviously won't play on mobile, so you're going to have a quicker load time through that, which is something that was important to us. Right now, our site is within the 3-second mark, but it's right on the brink of going a little bit over. So if you are going to have a video, you need to ask yourself, what is the reason for that video? Is it really adding to the user experience? Is it something that's engaging? Is it something that is very needed, for that site experience? Or are you just having a video to have a video? We wouldn't recommend having a long video run and play within your site on the home page. That's something that would make more sense on one of the secondary pages or a little bit deeper. But for us, again, taking it back as using Akia as an example, one thing that was very important to us was just to show how quickly we move, the culture here within our agency, all the different things we work on, and really give people the feeling of who we are. And we felt that the best way to bring that to life was through a video. So that's why we opted to have that on our page. So I don't want to say it's a hard yes or it's a hard no. You just really have to evaluate, is that necessary content to really tell your story? And if you decide that it is, that's fine. Just make sure that it's not going to be something that is a long file, is a large file, and make sure that it's not competing too much with that load time that we're trying to hit.
Great. And we have just one other quick question. Can you explain what a bounce rate is?
Sure. So the bounce rate is going to tell you how quickly people are leaving a page. So if I am looking at a bounce rate on a website from people who came to my website, maybe from an ad. So let's say you saw an ad online and you clicked it and you came to my website and you left the page immediately. To me, that tells me that maybe my ad and my website or the page I sent you to weren't connected. Maybe I misled you with the ad and you got to the site and the content you were looking for wasn't there, so you left. So we never want to see the bounce rates high. They vary as a percentage by industry. So you want to keep an eye on what people are doing, how they get to your site, and then how quickly they're bouncing or leaving. In some cases where, if you're promoting a blog, you're going to see people, if I promote a blog article on LinkedIn and people click my LinkedIn post, they go and read my blog, they're probably not going to go anywhere else on my site. They're probably going to just leave after they read the article, unless I'm kind of leaving breadcrumbs within the article, encouraging them to go to other areas on my website. So in that instance, my bounce rate is going to be a little bit higher because they're going to read the content on that page and then they're going to leave and not go anywhere else on my site afterwards. So the next area we want to focus on is design. And despite the age-old advice, people really do judge a book by its cover. Fair or not, the candidate who showed up underdressed for the interviews starts off at a disadvantage, and we tend to act and judge something by what we see. In turn, a poorly designed website is not going to make a first impression. Every design aspect that goes into your website, your logo, the typeface, the color palette, the imagery, the icons you use, the layout, etc., must be strategically selected and placed. 46% of people say a website's design is the #1 criteria for determining the credibility of a company. So it's very critical to remember that your site is a channel that represents your brand, and it should remain consistent with your established identity and other marketing efforts. So think about the design that you're using across all of your marketing efforts and ensure that you're providing a very connected design experience on your site. So again, if you're running ads, whether they're digital or print, if you are producing literature that's being sent out, mailed out, chances are on every single piece of content that you're producing, every single ad or marketing piece, you're going to have your website. So you want to make sure that the look and feel of those other pieces not only align back to your identity, but then of course that your website is creating a very similar design experience so that people don't feel disconnected. You don't want to lead people down one path thinking that they're going to experience your brand a certain way and then get to your site and have it look like a completely different company or experience to them. So let's take a look at what poor design says about your company. Again, just like that candidate that showed up not really dressed for the position they were interviewing for, poorly designed website is going to say that you don't care how you look. It's going to say that you, again, are cheap. This comes up a lot, but you're cheap. You don't want to spend the money to improve your business. And it can also say that you're not aware of or connected to the rest of your organization. If you've got those disjointed looks and feels to maybe an offline marketing piece compared to your website or even other elements that are online, it's going to feel very disconnected and disjointed, and that's not something that you want. So ultimately, again here, a poorly designed site is going to show that you don't care about your customers. So in turn, what it should say if you have the right design and you've taken the time to really think that through, it's going to say that first impressions are very important to you, and you take pride in what you do, you care about the small stuff, and you're willing to invest in your business, and that you're innovative and you're current. You're paying attention to the latest trends, you're paying attention to the design and the style and what's going to be something that resonates to your audience, and it's going to really show that you care about your customers and you're very in tune to their needs and who they are, and you understand them. So if you aren't quite there yet with the design of your site, these are some tips on what you can do to turn that around for you. You can stay on top of trends. We don't always want to follow every single latest trend because that's going to change quite often, and it's very expensive to update a website and constantly change it. We're not saying to do that, but we are saying to just stay current on what are some of those latest trends. What is the best way to communicate your brand, your product, your service, your offerings in a visual way that's going to be very, very relevant to those users and customers that you're trying to connect with. You can conduct audience research and determine what resonates with your audiences if you're not familiar with what that is. You can also take a look at your competitors to see how they're presenting their brands and make sure you're doing something that is going to make you stand out from them, but then also is making you just aware of what they're doing, so you're not completely replicating what they're doing or completely too far off track where it's going to feel very disjointed to your customers. Make sure that you pay attention to the details, looking at when you're developing the design for your website, what does it look like on a desktop versus a tablet versus a mobile device. There's some cases where you might have to design two separate templates or layouts for what that site looks like when it moves from desktop to a smaller mobile screen. So really paying attention to those details, testing it across multiple devices to make sure that you're creating that good experience across all different ways that people are going to be accessing your site. And then the last item here is representing your brand consistently. So look closely at every single marketing effort, every piece that you have out there, and determine how you can consistently represent and connect your brand across all of those different channels. Any questions about design before we move on?
Yeah, we do have one. What are some of the trends that you're seeing as far as homepage design goes? What are companies doing? Of course, recognizing every business is different.
Yep. So what we're seeing lately is the long scroll. So we're seeing a lot of companies having a homepage that really kind of serves up different buckets of content. And again, the Akia site follows this trend and has that long scroll. What we wanted to do with ours was, lead at the top by showing kind of the inside of our agency and engaging people with kind of who we are, what that culture is like, and the pace of our work. But then we wanted to almost give kind of quick highlights as to who we were as a company. So within our homepage, what we're doing right now is quickly showcasing what our service offerings are, how we approach our clients' work in a couple of different ways, how our teams are made up, and then some of our thought leadership content. So really having that homepage almost serve as kind of a quick highlight for your entire organization. We've seen Apple do this. We've seen some of the other agencies that we compete with do this. And it's kind of a nice quick way to allow someone just to scroll, whether it's on desktop or easily scroll on their phone and just kind of get a quick glance as to who you are. So that's one trend that we're seeing in terms of just kind of setup. We're also seeing a much more simplified path to navigation. Again, there's just so many options out there. There's so many different ways to showcase your brand. But one of the things that is very critical is making it easy to navigate, kind of back to that first point that we were talking about. So when they're designing the site, we're seeing less of a lot of different menu bars at the top, and then also down along like maybe the left side. I know that was kind of more of a trend, in the last 10 years or so, but we're seeing a more simplified navigation path, which is also, ultimately making that user experience easier for your site visitors. And then I guess the last area would be more use of like icons and less use of imagery. Again, with just the need to kind of update and stay relevant and current. Sometimes if you're using imagery, it's hard to make that always look fresh. If you are taking pictures of people, clothing styles change very quickly, and images can look pretty dated pretty fast. So we're seeing more people kind of moving to the use of like icons and more graphical treatments than using a lot of photos and such throughout their site.
Great. And we have one other question. One of the people in the audience is saying that they are using WordPress for their site and are being told that there are too many plugins which are affecting load time. Again, back to load time. Any suggestions for that?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what type of company it is or site, but WordPress sites are great. We work on those a lot for our clients too. We like to use those when, there's not a whole lot of customization that's needed. We'll tend to use a WordPress site versus a platform like Kentico, unless you have the need to have an enterprise system like that. So we love WordPress. We use it a lot of times for our clients. The one thing that does get challenging with it, and when you are looking to determine what platform to use, is within WordPress, there's only so many things that come standard with that. So the more that you want to customize your site and add different experiences and different aspects to the site that aren't initially offered with WordPress, the slower it will make your site perform. And another challenge with that is every time there's an upgrade with, our different browsers like Chrome or Firefox or whatever browser you're using to access, the internet, your plugins then have to be updated and retooled, if you will, to accommodate those updates. So that can definitely slow down your site. So I guess my recommendation would be really evaluate if you need to create all those different customized plugins for your users. And if you're getting to the point where it really is interfering with that experience and the load time, it might be time to move on to a different platform, that isn't WordPress. Again, that it is expensive shift if you need to do that and reset a site or rebuild a site or move to an enterprise system. But again, if you're going to use WordPress, try to use that and really use the features that come with it and not add too many plugins.
Great. And then real quickly, what was the site that you recommended to test website speed?
It is called GT Metrics. That's a free site where you can just plug in your URL for your site or any site. So check out your site, look at your competitors as well, and they'll give you the analysis of what that speed time is.
Great. No other questions at this time, Jamie.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the last bucket, which is going to be content. So something really important to consider and remember, customers are researching solutions to their needs online, and they're connecting with your brand as a result of your search efforts. In the past, before we were really into the age of digital, we still were connecting with salespeople, we were connecting with customer service, we were connecting in person. What has happened with the whole digital movement is that the power is really with the customers. They're creating their own journey. They are doing their own research, and this is a pretty alarming stat. In most cases, prospects are actually 57% of the way to a buying decision before they connect with your sales team. So whatever content they come across online on their own is really informing that first impression and their experience with your brand. So what this means for your website is you must make sure that your website is going to really deliver the core message of your brand. You want to make sure that it's providing solutions for your customers. You want to make sure that it's demonstrating why your offerings are better than the competition. And then you want to make sure that you're showing proof of this through case studies or testimonials or reviews. So make sure that your site is well written, easy to understand, and is going to deliver back to those customer needs. So if you've got poor content, if you don't have the right information out there on your site, this is what it's going to say about your company. It's going to say you don't know who you are and you don't know what you can do for me. If you're not able to clearly communicate what your company does, what those offerings are, if you can't explain that, your customers aren't going to be able to understand it, and it's going to turn them away, and they're going to go someplace else to seek out information, the information that they need. It's going to show that you lack a focus and purpose. Again, if you can't quickly tell me who you are and what you do, how can I trust that you're going to be able to help me with my needs? And it's going to show that you're not any different than your competitors. So what difference does it make if I purchase your product over theirs instead? And again, and I'm sure you're starting to see the underlying theme here, you don't care about your customers. So on the flip side, if you do have a well-written site and you've got great content, here's what it's going to say about your company. It's going to deliver back against that first impression. I'm going to be able to get to your site, quickly see who you are, what you do, and it's going to tell me that first impressions are important to you. You know who you are, you know what you're good at. You're able to help me with my problem because you're clearly communicating who you are, what you can offer me, and why your services or products are better than your competition. And I'm going to be able to see that you've got a proven track record of helping other people like me by, seeing case studies or testimonials or other customer reviews within your site. So ultimately, I'm going to walk away feeling that you care about your customers. So if you're not there yet with your content, here's some things that you can do. First, you can make sure that you're clearly communicating who you are as a business and what you offer to your customers. So really think through what your positioning is. What's that one thing that you want customers to walk away with knowing about you? Not, a paragraph, not an essay, but what is that one thing? What is that one statement that really defines who you are? Use that to then identify what is going to make you stand out from your competition. So if you know who you are, make sure that is stated clearly within your site and across all of your content, and then tell your audience what makes you different from your competitors. Why are you the authority in that space? Why are you better than the competition. And again, really showcasing those testimonials and wins from satisfied customers. You know, there's only so much that a brand can do to really convince people that it has the best product or service, but when you can really showcase you know, the wins from customers and use them to advocate on your behalf, it's going to go a long way with those audiences. So in closing, just really think about, you know, based on what we talked about today, are you providing that positive experience for your customers through navigation, through design, and through content? We've talked about how that first impression your site creates is going to result in deep-rooted thoughts and feelings that are very difficult to change. And the difference between a negative and positive website experience is going to determine how your customers feel about your brand. So, you know, I encourage you all to take a look at your site, use some of the tools that were shared today, and really think through, what does your website say about you? So that concludes the presentation. Would like to open it up to see if there's any additional questions out there or anything more that I can address about.
Sure. While we wait for the questions to come in, the one thing I'll ask, Jamie, is what is one thing that you would want someone to walk away from this presentation with, that if you could summarize it in 30 seconds or less, what is the one takeaway you would want people to log off with today?
I would definitely say that, you know, back to the first impression. So we know that people are turning to online to seek information about their purchase decisions, and your website is going to be that destination channel that can really make or break the first impression and experience with your brand. So make sure that you're following these three areas that we discussed. Make sure you're offering the right form of navigation, you're making it easy to navigate, make sure that you have the content there that is going to really speak to who you are, and that your site is designed in a visual way that's going to be easy for people to engage with.
Great. And we do have a question about content. You had talked about testimonials. How do you get those noticed? You know, you talk about, you know, we talk about showcasing them. What are some of the ways that you're seeing some of your clients showcase the testimonials that they have on their sites to make sure that they're noticed and people are engaging with them?
Yep. So there's a couple of different ways to go about this. In general, we like to think about what content and types of content are most relevant at each stage of the buyer journey. So in the very beginning of the journey, when we're just in the awareness stage and we're seeking information, we know we have a problem, we don't know how to solve it, we start conducting research. At this stage, we have the tendency to look for bigger content pieces like articles or white papers. We're not quite yet ready to receive a testimonial because we're still in the awareness stage, versus as we start to move through the journey and we get closer to making that consideration or purchase decision, that's the point where we're really ready to start seeing customer reviews and testimonials and such. That length of time will vary if you're a B2B company versus a B2C, and how long that journey is for purchasing your product. So when it comes to where you feature that within your site, you'll need to consider that based on what industry you're in and who the customers are that you're serving. But as a general rule of thumb, what we would recommend is when you're getting into the services that you offer or the products that you offer, lead first with what is the solution that provides, what is the pain point that addresses for your audience, and then support that support that with testimonials or a review or a quote from a customer as a secondary point to that.
Great. Thank you very much, Jamie. We don't have any other questions at this time. Certainly want to thank Jamie, you for taking some time out of your day, and I want to thank everyone in the audience for tuning in today. And just as a reminder, we'll have a recap of this available in the next few weeks on our own content page, cozy.org/MYB, so you can look for it on that site. And if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, just yet, I would encourage you to do so. Just go to cozy.org/subscribe and check the box next to Mind Your Business, and you'll start seeing those in your inbox when they go out. Again, thank you everyone for taking the time today, and you may all disconnect at this time.